Xi Jinping, a biography, written by Zhong Wen. Chapter 16 American Awakening. In 2015, Michael Pillsbury published, The 100-Year Marathon, China's Secret Strategy to Replace America as the Global Superpower, a milestone in America's awakening to China. The book is a milestone in America's awakening to China. Being fluent in Chinese and with 40 years of first-hand experience dealing with the CCP, he served as Assistant Secretary of Defense and retired as Director of the Center for China Strategy at the Hudson Institute, a think tank. His 100-Year Marathon, which had been in draft form shortly after she took office in 2013, was circulated within the Defense Department and resonated widely. Xi's 2013 meeting with President Obama was insincere like chicken and egg. Obama's good intentions for the U.S.-China cooperation came to naught. Xi Jinping shouted, building a community of human destiny, providing Chinese solutions for the world, extended his fist to the United States in the South China Sea and spread the Belt and Road to change the world map. 2014 Russia sent troops to East Ukraine and Crimea and the United States imposed severe economic sanctions. Xi Jinping, however, gave Putin a major blood transfusion, signing a 25-year, $270 billion oil deal and paying $70 billion in advance in one go, clearly going against the United States. The U.S. was under the illusion of aiding the CCP, hoping that China would join the club of democracies in 2015 but found that it had been deceived and had misjudged China. Michael Collins, an assistant at the CIA, also said that the CCP is a duck in the water that hides on the surface and moves undetectably below the surface. Xi Jinping speaks grandly of a win-win situation between China and the United States, while CCP think tank Jean Sanrong admits that a win-win situation between China and the United States means that China wins twice, and another think tank, Zhang Weiwei, says that the CCP is starting to set rules for the United States. The U.S. government accepted the revelations of the Centennial Marathon. After 2015 Obama began to change his policy of engagement to containment of China, deploying a return to Asian military power in 2016 to counter Xi Jinping's South China Sea strikes. The U.S. has helped the CCP enter the World Trade Organization, WTO, for more than a decade, but the Chinese Communist Party has violated its commitment to open markets. Xi Jinping's rise to power has intensified his efforts to pull out his sword on the United States. On November 29, 2018, more than 30 leading U.S. experts on China, after 1.5 years of research, published a 192-page report titled Chinese Influence and American Interests, Promoting Constructive Vigilance, marked the awakening of a whole generation of Chinese experts who had discovered that they had misjudged the CCP. Many of them, who used to be friendly and expectant of the CCP, now feel that their dreams have collapsed, creating a sense of disgust and powerlessness, and set up a consensus that they have a grievance against the CCP. The report generally resonates with Bongrue Bai's 100 Years of Marathon. The report is authored by Larry Diamond, a professor at Stanford University's Hoover Institution and Orville Schell, director of the Asia Society's Center for U.S.-China Relations. In October 2018, the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence delivered a special speech on China's policy stating that U.S. expectations of China over the years to respect the principles of freedom, respect private property, respect human rights, and respect religious freedom had all fallen short. China has benefited from U.S. aid. Its GDP has grown 9 times over the past 17 years and it has become the world's second-largest economy. Now it is turning plowshares into swords, making the United States its enemy, stealing U.S. trade secrets, illegally acquiring U.S. intellectual property, stealing U.S. technology, confronting the United States militarily on land, at sea, in the air, and even in outer space. China has struck into the South China Sea to push the United States out of the Western Pacific and militarized the South China Sea aggressively. The CCP controls almost every aspect of people's lives, including domestic surveillance of the people, persecution of human rights, and the Great Firewall is getting higher and higher. Domestically, the CCP persecuted Tibetan monks protesting self-immolation, imprisoning millions of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang. Externally, the Belt and Road to debt diplomacy hold involved countries. Taiwan has been suppressed and some countries have been induced to break off diplomatic relations with Taiwan by corrupting them with money. 3 Latin American countries have been drawn in by the Chinese Communist Party and have broken off diplomatic relations with Taiwan since 2017. Vice President Pence condemned Xi Jinping for not only trying to make the domestic media go by the party name, blow the trumpet for him, but also for spending billions of dollars around the world to make big propaganda for the CCP. China International Television reaches 75 million Americans in the US and directly propagates that line of the CCP masters. The CCP controlled China Students and Scholars Associations, which have more than 150 chapters in US universities. They also control the social activities of 430,000 students and scholars. If a student deviates from the CCP's line, she will be denounced to the Chinese embassy or consulate and her family will be harassed at home. The CCP undermines academic freedom and freedom of expression in the United States. Pence said the U.S. will not back down in the face of the Chinese Communist offensive and is determined to defend the American tradition of freedom and security. Pence's speech sounded the clarion call for a comprehensive U.S. denunciation of the Chinese Communist Party, which will be deployed to contain it on all fronts. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, who retired at the end of 2018, advocated for the organization Stand for America in February 2019. China, Russia, Iran as international threats, and the Chinese Communist Party is the largest foreign threat to the United States. Haley pointed out that the former Soviet Union, to which the United States fought against during the Cold War, had an economy only a fraction of the size of China's today, and that the US-China confrontation was not the same as the US-Soviet confrontation. She said the US must rethink its national security strategy and improve relations with its allies. The US should rally countries against China and resist the Chinese military threat, strengthen its military, improve its information technology and cyber warfare capabilities, and modernize its long-neglected nuclear infrastructure. She noted that, fortunately, there was cross-party support for a policy of confronting CCP's aggression. The United States faces a life-or-death risk and must act now. On July 20, 2019, the Committee on Current Dangers, a group of hawkish political, academic, and military leaders, issued a statement calling on President Trump not to become the 4th U.S. president to save the Chinese Communist regime. The statement has more than 130 signatures, co-signing a letter to Trump, and more than 130 people signed a letter to Trump and Congress, calling on the U.S. government to stick to its hard line against the Chinese Communist Party. The Committee on the Present Danger, which had been defunct for years, was revived this year in a climate of crisis due to the rising threat of the CCP, with the intent of preventing Trump from compromising with the CCP as he wavered. The Committee on the Present Danger, which took credit for the collapse of the Soviet Union, is now advocating that the United States should treat the Chinese Communist Party as the Soviet Union and deal with it forcefully. On July 23, 2020, Secretary of State Pompeo delivered a 25-minute speech on China at the Nixon Memorial Library in Los Angeles, Communist China and the Future of the Free World. He said, "If the free society does not join hands to change the CCP, it will wait to be changed by the CCP." He added, "Xi Jinping is a believer in bankrupt totalitarian ideology, and he will not reform it on his own." If Pompeo's ideas are adhered to, it is believed that in less than 3 years, the CCP will change and the United States will be the final gravedigger to bury communism. Pompeo repeatedly said that the world can only be safe if the Chinese Communist Party is changed to create a China that is free internally and friendly externally. Pompeo pointed out that the CCP has been taking advantage of America's freedom and openness, infiltrating America, destroying freedom of expression in the media, destroying research centers and academic freedom on campuses. The CCP is afraid of the true voice of the people. If we do not act, the Chinese Communist Party will violate our freedom, destroy our rule of law and order, and our children and grandchildren will be at its mercy. Nixon made an exception in 1970. He went to Beijing to meet Mao Zedong to invite Mao into the United Nations. He opened the door to Mao when he was the president. Pompeo chose to deliver an unprecedented speech on the new China policy at the Nixon Memorial Library. He said the U.S. closed the door to Nixon now. The United States is changing the policy of opening the door to the evil Chinese Communist Party, ending Nixon's political legacy. The U.S. will no longer listen to the lies of the CCP, to separate and raise the flag of the crusade against the evil party. Pompeo's speech is a powerful manifesto for the destruction of the Communist Party. On November 10, 2020, Secretary Pompeo again delivered a special address on China at the Reagan Research Center, America's Commitment. He points out that the United States was founded on the belief in freedom and that the U.S. government aims to preserve freedom. In the face of the CCP's evil behavior at home and abroad, the U.S. goal is that China must eventually end CCP rule, end one-party rule, and return political power to the Chinese people. Freedom against the CCP has been a bipartisan consensus in the United States, and the United States will persist in doing so. Pompeo also pointed out that Marxism-Leninism is a monster, authoritarian and barbaric, opposed to human freedom. China will be like the Soviet Union, where the people will determine the course of the country's history. American liberal democracy is the shining city on the hill, and we will hold fast to God's will and promise. Pompeo said, "My knowledge of and attitude toward the Chinese Communist Party was formed when I was director of the Central Intelligence Agency in 2017. In December 2020, Pompeo did not call Xi Jinping president, but General Secretary of the CCP of China with the intention of not recognizing Xi as the normal president of the country, indicating that he proposed to change the Communist Party against Xi Jinping." Pompeo also said for the first time that Taiwan is not a part of China, which means to break the One China magic shield of the CCP. According to Pompeo, it is not long before the United States and Taiwan resume diplomatic relations, and there are in fact two Chinese governments. When President Biden took office, he sent a special presidential envoy to Taiwan in April 2012 to meet with President Tsai Ing-wen, strongly signaling his intention to restore formal diplomatic relations between the United States and Taiwan. President Biden basically continues Pompeo's policy towards the CCP. Liaising with the EU, UK, Japan, Australia, India and other allies, President Biden launched an encirclement and siege of the CCP. By August 2021, when the Wuhan virus origin report comes out and reveals the truth about Xi Jinping's manufacturing and spreading of the virus, the general policy of encirclement of the CCP took shape and Xi Jinping will not be able to escape from his guilt. As early as August 14, 2015, the Chinese Communist Party's military medical press published an internal textbook, Unnatural Origins of SARS and Human-Made Human New Strain Virus Genetic Weapons, revealing that the Chinese Communist Party had weaponized the SARS coronavirus 5 years ago and had already predicted that World War III would be biological warfare. The book was published internally by the military and went unnoticed by the outside world for several years. 2021 was turned up by the Australian media, the Australian, and the US intelligence have together verified the existence of the book. The 5-year-old Chinese military's prediction has coincided with the contagious disaster scenario of the new coronavirus in the year 2020. Now the Wuhan Institute of Virus Research is doing virus breakdown and synthesis to create new viruses. If it is not for biological weapons testing, why do we need military biological weapons defense experts to participate? Although the Chinese Communist Party has deliberately concealed and destroyed the evidence, there are a large amount of leaked fragmentary information which the CCP could not remove one by one. When we put the leaked secret data together, it is enough to explain the context of the leak. Xi Jinping cannot escape the guilt.